we have a very special guest here in Winnipeg. We are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. It did happen in Winnipeg, and we are so proud and honored to have the Right Honorable Kim Campbell here in Winnipeg. And what a most fitting woman to give a speech and to guide us into the future.
Well, it's been a delight to be here and to celebrate this wonderful historical event and all that flowed from it.
So, Ms. Campbell, how far have we come?
We've come a long way, and in a number of ways. First of all, not only that women are doing many things and assuming roles. I'm still waiting for another woman prime minister, but we've got women premiers and mayors and things like that happening. But we also have a much better understanding of the value that women bring to organizations, a lot of research, so that instead of saying, well, maybe we'd include a woman, or maybe if she's somebody who can leap tall buildings in a single bound, we might include her. We now know that the presence of women in corporate boards and management in organizations is in fact very much a plus. Mm-hmm. So we can begin to push on those doors a little bit more. But you know, old habits die hard. And sometimes people like their comfortable arrangements that they've made, and so we still have a lot more to accomplish.
Well, I think as women, we wear so many hats now, and I guess for you, where do you see, the problems or the issues that women face in politics and business?
Well, I think it's really old attitudes, and you know, there is a human tendency towards self-replication. You know, we're comfortable with people that are like us, that we think we speak the same language, etc. But what research in social psychology and organizational behavior, etc., shows is that, in fact, when you can incorporate diverse voices, you actually get better decision making. But it isn't a matter of just throwing a bunch of different people together and stirring, because that often doesn't work. And that's why often companies will say, well, you know, we had a woman, but it didn't work, because you didn't change anything else. You didn't make it a welcoming environment. So this idea of recognizing the value of diversity and helping people to get over their discomfort at having to interact with people who are not exactly like them, where they can't, it's interesting, diverse groups actually function better, because if we're with people who are just like us, we don't express ourselves precisely, because, you know what I mean. I don't have to say that. If I'm with a group of people that don't have the same background that I do, the same terms of reference, I have to be much more precise in what I do, and the level of discussion rises when you have diverse groups. So there's a lot of interesting research that shows that. But at the end of the day, people are comfortable with where they're comfortable, and if they get used to more diverse groups of people, they become comfortable with that. But getting over those barriers is still a challenge.
The word diverse, I can kind of make, I guess, a comparison to the multiculturalism, the refugees coming in, the women coming in that come from different cultures now. We have to treat that with respect. But then Ms. Campbell, how do we come together as women and be strong?
Well, you know, it's a very interesting challenge, because if you look at the world rankings of countries where it's good to be a woman, I think Canada, in the latest one that came out I saw, was number 3. The countries where many of these refugees come from are way at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And so people will come to this country with very different expectations about what women can do, what they should do. Not all, some of them come from, more urbanized and open environments. It's very important for us not to sacrifice our values, that we cannot have sort of kind of moral relativism and political correctness and say, well, it wouldn't do for us, but they don't seem to mind it. We need to work to help integrate people into Canadian values, and that is why accepting immigrants has always been something that you have to work at. And in Canada, we have, over the decades, invested money in acculturating and assimilating immigrants where we needed to. And different groups will bring different challenges. For some, it'll be fundamentally a linguistic challenge, and the challenge is to get them speaking English right away, but otherwise they're able to assimilate well in society. For others, there may be fundamental values. And you saw the report of the president of Iran visiting the Vatican, and the people in the Vatican covering up the sculptures of naked people. Now, the Pope, who is celibate, can apparently walk around sculptures of naked people without being corrupted. We have different values in our society where we idealize the human form, and we don't see it as something that's sexy or kinky. We see it as something beautiful and classic, and its context is everything. Right. But here, the idea was that the president of Iran had to be accommodated. Well, I'm not prepared to put boxes around the nude statues. I'm not prepared to create standards of behavior that are not integral to our society. But I recognize that we need to work to make it possible for people who have different values to learn to respect our values. In countries like Norway, for example, people are working with immigrants and saying, you know, if a nice, attractive young woman, it looks like you, is not covered, smiles at you, she's not a prostitute.
No.
That's because in some societies, for a woman to be friendly, and she might just be just a kind person welcoming you, recognizing you're an immigrant, and saying, you know, oh, welcome to Norway. But you're reading something totally different. So creating that cultural literacy among people who come to our country, first of all, to avoid them getting to situations where they break the law and wind up being turfed out again, but also to protect us, to protect our independence. And women need to be the liberated women they are in Canada without fearing for that. And therefore, we need to make sure that people who come from different value systems understand that Canada is different, but that Canada is also free,
Yes.
and Canada is a place where they can reach their potential.
And I guess lastly, Ms. Campbell, who would you say would symbolize Nellie McClung today, in today's world?
Well, you know, happily we don't need quite a Nellie McClung today, but there are lots of wonderful activists for women's rights in Canada in many different aspects. You know, I think about the conversation I had with Louise Arbour a number of years ago, who's played many roles in our society, when she was the chief war crimes prosecutor at The Hague, and they had made systemic rape a war crime. You know, that's a very interesting approach to protecting the rights of women by saying this is not okay. We don't just say, oh, this is one of the natural outcomes of war. Many of women, the judges on the Supreme Court of Canada, Beverly McLaughlin, Rosalie Abel, and others, people who are out there as activists. I mean, I almost can't name them all because there are so many. And perhaps that's a good sign that we've made enough progress, that there are many women's voices at many levels of government and society advocating for things for women, and they're no longer marginalized. Oh, that's just women's issues. No, they are part of the conversation about what we think are issues that relate to society, not just one part of it.
Well, you yourself, Ms. Campbell, are an icon and a mentor for so many women, our 19th Prime Minister, and yes, we hope that we will have a new Prime Minister,
I'm
a
not
female.
getting any younger, folks. I'm wanting to be there when she's sworn in, so let's go for it.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms.
My
Campbell.
pleasure, and happy anniversary, Manitoba, out there leading the way.
For Shaw TV, I'm Tracy Koga. Special thanks to Kevin Donnelly, Stuart Murray, and the Honorable Kim Campbell, as well musical performances from Sheena Grob and Sweet Alibi. We leave you now with a little taste on what's to come on the next episode of Backstage 360.